KwaZulu-Natal is at the moment really struggling with the impact on human life. At least 32 people known to have died as a result of the most recent storms and the significant damage to infrastructure. There are parts of our province that still haven't entirely caught up after the very, very serious weather that we had on Heritage Day last year. And increasingly in South Africa and the rest of Africa around the globe, these extreme weather events are happening. And climate change scientists say you cannot attribute each and every single one of them. You can't say that happened because of global climate change, but what you can say with complete confidence is that the number of these extreme weather events is going to increase in frequency and to increase intensity. So we must get ready for this. And how ready are we for it? Let's ask climate research specialist Dr. Nomhle Ngwenya, who joins us via Zoom. Nomhle, good morning. So the question to you, how ready are we? How ready are we getting for these increasing frequency, increasing intensity weather events?
Sure. Thank you, John, for having me, and good morning to your viewers. So state of readiness, honest truth is we are definitely not ready in our country at the moment. And the reason being is that if we just recap on the years 2022 to 2023, looking at the state of the floods and the impact that it has had on infrastructure, we see massive destruction that was caused. We are witnessing an aging infrastructure. We are also witnessing lots of resources which now need to be geared up. For example, last year, the Eastern Cape government mentioned about 4.5 billion rands needed to just, fix, the infrastructure that was destroyed by flooding. If we also just recap in 2022 up until 2023, the KZN local government mentioned about 2 billion rands needed to just upgrade the current infrastructure. So on infrastructure level, we are definitely not well equipped for the impacts of climate change and extreme weather events such as flooding.
There is such a demand for an ever-decreasing pile of treasury money, Nomhle. So if you look at government responses to the extreme events that we've had and their comments, if any, about rethinking the way that these things are anticipated, planned for, early warning systems, improved response systems, changing where and how infrastructure is developed. Do you get a sense that this is an issue that the South African government is taking seriously?
John, the interesting thing about our government is we have, policies such as Disaster Management Act, we have the Climate Change Bill, National Climate Change Response Paper, and all these outline how, climate change is projected to have, significant impacts on society and the environment. Projections were made about 10, 15 years ago on, the effects of El Nino and the effects of floods. And still, we are still not prepared, even with all the scientific data that is being presented to us. And so this bodes a very important, point in that government clearly cannot do everything and cannot, increase our preparedness and resilience to the impacts of climate change. This is where, public-private partnerships become very important. We really need to engage, the business community to come to play, academia as well, with, weather science data, in order for us to, have comprehensive solutions, but also build up our preparedness to extreme weather events.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's not a problem just facing South Africa. It's a problem facing countries around the world. And even some of the more developed countries seem to be on the back foot when it comes to the sort of thing that we're talking about now.
Indeed, indeed, and very much true. I mean, even if we look at developed countries such as in Europe, where we saw floods in Slovenia, we saw floods in Denmark. Exactly the same situation is that this is the first time in history where governments are presented with natural disasters that are recorded as the worst in history, and governments are slowly realizing that they themselves alone cannot solve or enhance resilience and preparedness for such natural disasters. And this is where really corporate comes to play. This is where NGOs come to play, and academia, in order to build up innovative solutions, to build up things such as climate resilient infrastructure.
I'm going to be a little bit personal, I'm sorry, but Nomhle Ngwenya, to whom I'm speaking, is extraordinary. She is in her mid-20s. She is the youngest PhD graduate from the science faculty at Wits University ever. She skipped masters. Her honors work was so impressive that she was able to go straight on to a PhD. And why I'm mentioning that, Nomhle, is because more and more young people are getting more and more concerned, as they should, about climate change and what we oldies are handing over to you younger ones. And I mean, I think that the number of young people who are becoming activists in the academic space or in the community space around these issues is one of the few encouraging things around this area.
Thank you very much, John, for your kind words. Truly, truly humbled. And I think you mentioned a very important point: is young people really taking up space in the climate change field. And this is very important because this is where things like skills development and technical expertise become very, very important. When we are dealing with adapting and mitigating against climate change. So, for example, if we look at building climate resilient infrastructure, we really need young people, for example, as city planners, to develop, flood zoning areas and flood zoning maps to map out high risk areas. But we also need, technical expertise in environmental engineering, to build up, climate resilient infrastructure and to incorporate things such as nature-based solutions. So, it is quite impressive that young people are really taking a voice in this space, because really this is a challenge that, will stay with us and future generations.
Thank you very, very much for talking to us. I'm sure that I will be talking to you again and again. Climate Research Specialist, Dr. Nomhle Ngwenya.